I want to go back to where you started. I think we tried to bring this up like an hour ago. But tell me how you got started in the beverage industry.
So I was working for Universal Music Group, running the Island Def Jam record labels for the Midwest, like the promotions, and then we were throwing parties at night. And so we were throwing a party called Rehab at Debonair, which actually won best party in the United States. For so that's a
Congrats.
real thing, which is kind of I always love bringing it up. It's kind of like so ridiculous. You're like, that's real,
I mean, I had a
but
girlfriend that would go to Debonair. It was like every Tuesday or something like that.
Monday.
Monday,
So
yeah.
I think back and I'm like, damn, that we literally were out every single Monday night for like years. I don't even know how. I mean, it was like, oh my god, it's like dog years. You're like, damn, that's a wild. But
So you started throwing parties for that?
well, so I was actually hosting it. So it was with, and
Okay.
that's the great thing is like, so literally the scene at Rehab was like, or actually I was joking, right? I'd be like, yeah, no, we all know each other from Rehab, and I'd be like, no, 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 it's a party. Now it was like, you met all these people in Rehab, and they're like, when were you in Rehab? No, but it was like, that's what's cool. It was this scene where so it was like Derek Barry, who's now, did Saved by the Max and is now running Bucket Listers. Zach Eastman, who owns Easy Does It. I mean, Clayton Hawk, Million Dollar Mano, not, I mean, all these people. And it was just like this whole thing that was really rad. 'Cause it was this moment when like, like 2009-ish where, like people were literally like dropping out of school to become DJs and then going, from like the house parties into the nightclubs. And it was this whole kind of moment in time, which was an absolute blast. And so I always knew that it basically Pabst and Red Bull had at the time like field and culture marketing programs. So that's always like this is next level. I mean, I guess what is now called like experiential marketing to a certain extent. But so, I ended up, through degrees of connection amongst great people. Next thing you know, in skinny jeans, leather jacket, may have been wearing a fedora, no. But at Pabst, in the Pabst office when they were based in Woodridge, Illinois, and actually started in the Old Style brand.
Oh yeah.
And it's wild. I mean, I had no beverage background. I'd never been to a wholesaler. I mean, I didn't even know what pricing was. I had literally no idea, and was able to kind of enter in and work my way. I remember one of the things that was like so pivotal is that at one point they fused the field sales and field marketing roles together. And of course, it was like no way. Like I'm not. I don't know. I want to know anything about that, right? It was a total crash course, and one of the things that next thing I know, I ended up or segueing into brand management for the Old Style brand, and was like, because a brand has been declining for 22 years. I
How long
mean,
did that take? You just showed up and they're like, "Yeah, you're the brand manager now."
oh, no, no, no. It was a thing. I mean, I had to. I mean, again, I'm not classically CPG trained, so I mean, I literally had to kind of like work my way up and navigate.
What is it
And
about you that they would want you to be a brand manager? Like, what did you show them?
Well, so I mean, I was one of the biggest things too for all this is having mentors and people who give you a shot and give you a chance. So I mean, there was a CMO at the time, Dan McHugh, and still to this day, I mean, I was never classically CPG trained, right? And the whole thing was like, there was ideas and new school kind of ways of thinking, but I didn't know how to translate it into actually like like a brand plan or like a sit in a boardroom wherever it may be. And without him, I mean, I wouldn't even be here. So it was one of those things that he
Had a
really kind of
shot.
like shepherded me and like helped me kind of like learn really to take ideas and put them into something that's coherent that you can then share, and then also understanding people talk about like sales and marketing. I mean, they have to work hand in hand. You have to have a full scope of the business to really understand all the different facets to be able to kind of make an
And
impact.
if I think back about that brand, not a lot of people were really excited about them.
You know,
And it seems like you kind of spun it in a different direction. Like, what was the key to make old style cool again?
well, so I think one of the things
Or cool
too.
again? Is that the right word?
Well,
Like
no, and no,
relevant.
well, no, and thank you. Because if you're chasing cool, you've already lost. Cool is fleeting, right? I mean, the whole thing that's the joke. Is like there's nothing more than when you're like trying to like suckle off the teeth of cool, right? I mean, you're already three steps behind then. So the
Like
piece
it
is
was
that
like your grandpa's beer. Ha ha ha.
wasn't. I mean, old style is beautiful, and that was the biggest thing is that it had been through so many different kind of brand iterations and all these different things. And the one big thing for me, and as put my flag in the ground, and frankly, I was like, look, I'll put my job on the line for this. Frankly, I believe in is to go back to the classic, the 1977 classic white can. And again, it's not retro, it's classic, but something that has meaning. So, and that kind of defies a lot of the thoughts. So I was like, you have to be new, you have to appeal to this new generation. You're like, that's the whole thing, right? because culture is cyclical. So you can remember if you're in, again, 21 to 35, that was the beer that you can remember in the context of your mind. So go back to the classic can, but then bring it and infuse it. And this is where field and culture marketing comes into play. And that's the whole piece where I kind of cut my chops. Was like, I mean, I didn't go to school to figure out how to spend money on billboards and all this other kind of stuff and just move money around. I was like, no, you have to actually like play a tangible role in culture. You have to actually be there. But more importantly, you have to create. And that's the biggest thing, is that you don't sponsor things, you create things. You have to actually play a meaningful role in society. And that's the big piece. And that's the kind of change maker. So to take a beautiful brand like Old Style, I mean, again, that's why I still have the wallet. I mean, I'll remember for the rest of my life, because it was, someone told me it was career suicide. They said, don't take that job. You'll never change it. You will never, ever turn Old Style positive. I don't care how good you are or whatever it may be. And it's actually one of the only times I cried in a bar, to be honest. I was actually out with the wholesalers. The other thing too is that there's sales, marketing, trade marketing, but more importantly, wholesalers, right? Your wholesalers, everything. The guys that are actually on the street, you got to be out there with them. You have to be in the trenches, right? So I was actually out with some of the wholesalers, and I got the email. I was like, holy shit, we did it. And it totally threw me off. I remember I was standing there, and I was kind of like, yeah, that's a sensitive dude. I got a little choked up, and I remember I looked at me and I go, holy shit. Okay. Well, wow. Didn't expect that. Everybody thought I just figured out I gotten fired. So everyone goes, Spina, well, I mean, no, dude, what? No, you'll be okay. No, you'll be fine. I mean, like, and I go, no, guys, we fucking did it. It's positive. We turned it. And what was magical about it is that it was this moment in time where, we went back to the classic 1977 packaging. We also returned Old Style to its original brewing in G. Heilman. That's actually how I met Randy Hughes, who did the System Liquid. We did the first innovation, in decades, with Old Style Oktoberfest, Cooler by the Lake Radler, all this great stuff. And to this day, it was also, my biggest thing was like, if you time this right, the Cubs are going to win the World Series. I swear to God, I literally said this on a conference call, and someone was like, Spino, I don't know if we can, like fully, like put everything on your field of dreams. And I was like, I'm telling you this, look at this, literally. So like all the hair, like my arms hit it, because I was like, there's going to be a moment in time when an entire generation looks down, the Cubs win the World Series, and they're going to see that iconic 1977 packaging that their father and grandfather drank, and it's literally going to reignite and bring this back to where it should be, because it's beautiful. Yeah. And the crazy thing is that, like, you have to be all in. There's no other way to do this stuff, because it's like the second that you start playing everybody else's game and you don't fully believe it, like, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. So it was one of the things that, I mean, proudest moments, just because you have to believe and you have to see a bigger vision.
So when you started at Old Style, the sales were declining, and you were able to
totally. I mean, it was
you were spun it around in a positive direction just in time for the Cubs to win the World Series in was that 2016?
Yeah, that was it was wild.
How did you end up with the White Claw brand?
Oh, well, so this is the whole thing. It's like, not only are there magical brands, but there's magical people too. So when I first went to Pabst, I mean, there was this core team. I mean, it was just Sanjeev Gajrawala, Zach Nadili, Justin Kelly, Keith Hill. I mean, this amazing group, right? I mean, and Nick Osborne, all these, if I'm forgetting anybody, but it's like all these just like people, and it was so cool, because it was just kind of like this moment in time. Again, much like you talk about like the rehab party, right? It's like with certain brands, and so some of the former Pabst guys had gone over to Mark Anthony brands. And, be kind of casually talking, and they're like, hey, come on over. It's like, dude, there's something happening here. This is really cool. I was like, all right, cool. And so I kind of reached that point where I was like, I'm not some classically trained CPG guy. And I was like, dude, all I ever wanted to do in my entire life was not only make a positive impact on culture from a brand standpoint, but like, for me, it was Old Style. That's where I started, and that's where I finished. And I was like, where do I go? I don't,
you're going to retire with the championship.
Well, no, or it's like Seinfeld, you leave on top, right? And so you're like, all right, so
I'm out.
I end up, I'm I'm at First and First, Jerry. No, it's
But
so
White Claw wasn't an existing brand, right? This
well.
was a new
So
thing.
this was the thing that was so. I mean, a lot of this stuff is it's about right place, right time, right people, and these magic moments that happen. So when I got to marketing Anthony brands, White Claw had been around for I want to say it was like 2 years maybe, and so it was something that man, I'll never forget. I mean, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I think I was like 6 months in, and I was like, holy shit, something's happening here. Because it was this, I mean, it's wild to think that like hard seltzers, the concept did not exist like 6 years ago, right? This is something completely new to the world. When you look right now, hard seltzers are 10% of the total US beer category, which is frankly remarkable. But with White Claw, the big thing, it was the same feeling with PBR, where it was like, oh my God, you tapped into something bigger than yourself. And that was the thing when we were doing, so I started with Old Style, but then I was, running the PBR like field marketing in Chicago. And so the biggest thing that we always just say is that none of us are cool, right? Like we are shepherds, we are stewards of something that has meaning to a lot of people. And so it was like, oh my God, I mean, people embraced White Claw. People embraced, and again, we say hard seltzers, is that the big thing was that it was one of the first case studies to be gender neutral. Um, and also it became a lifestyle brand. And so the big thing is that you can't buy that. You can't fake it. The question is, what do you do with it?
Were you able to achieve that success by following the same playbook that you used on the other and starting with your parties on Monday night,
Well,
like the same sort of
so
concepts there?
so here's the big when you can create the infrastructure and the plan that I mean first off you can't manufacture stuff like that. I mean you can build an ecosystem that can embrace it, but it has to happen organically. And so
Yeah.
even if a seedling of organic, then you have to have the infrastructure ready to even engage with that, but then also pour some gas on it too. And that's the biggest thing is being able to put things in the right places and kind of playing this like I always kind of give the analogy of like Kaiser Soze. How do you be everywhere and nowhere at once? And that's part of the magic and this kind of like, the the utilization creation of genuine field and culture marketing
Yeah.
will always win. I mean, that's the piece.
That to me, that's your superpower is bringing, creating community, I think is what I see from you.
You nail on the head is that you build something that's bigger. Because again, a brand is a brand, but if you're something bigger than oneself, and it's something, and also more importantly, bringing people together. So that's kind of cool. Is that So I talk about like gender neutral, but then also being able to operate in different facets of society and different groups. And again, it's a special moment. So I mean,
Well, that brings me to sort of like where we're at. What just happened 2 weeks ago is seems like the culmination of your like your professional history, right?
that was something.
Tell me. So Riot Fest, how did you play a role in Riot
Well,
Fest?
okay, so I say, and first and foremost, I mean, I've looked up to Riot Fest. You talk about building community, doing something brick by brick. I mean, Riot Fest set the book. I mean, especially Mike Patrician too, is like it started in Mike and Sean. It's like one venue, three venues, five venues. Next thing you know, it's an outdoor. I mean, it's like you build a community, right? And it's done for all the right reasons. And the reasons are again just like genuine love and like genuine like passion, authenticity, something that you're like this has meaning to it, right? And so Mike and I we go way back, and one of those things when we first kind of brought this out.
Mike is the founder for Riot Fest.
Yeah, and some of his I mean, and it's his whole staff and people that he say staff, I mean his whole crew essentially, they're just it's awesome. It reminds me of old school Pabst. I mean, it's just like a collective of good, great people. The long story short was like, well, hey, what if we created a brand? Again, that's kind of like a festival exclusive. And the cool thing is that when you're dealing with people that it's like it's not like um, it's just super organic, and you just want to do the old adage like you just want to do cool shit with your friends. So next thing you know, Riot Pop was created. But the cool thing too is that that was the first time in the history of the United States where it wasn't like Riot Fest creates a hard seltzer. You're like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, no, this is something that is bigger. It's a reflection of the community, but also it's the first time in the history of, to my understanding, of the U.S. festival, and beyond, the debut of the first inclusive drinking system. And the big thing is that, the Riot Fest community is, they're so passionate and they're so loyal and they're so dedicated, and it really brings something that had never been done to include everybody, because that's what Riot Fest literally is, where it's like, this is a community where everybody is welcome, everybody's involved. And so, you know, to stand there and see something where you're like, oh my God, this works. Because I mean, to be honest, like the whole concept of the first inclusive drinking system at the beginning was like, am I losing my mind? Like seriously, it's like, you think your barometer is pretty good, but to see people really embrace it, and also to be very like vocal about it, and to be like, oh wow, I don't drink or this and that, or I'm, now there's something for me. I feel included.
Did you have the 058 there?
Oh yeah, yep,
Oh, I didn't know
absolutely.
that.
And
Riot Pop was alcoholic.
oh yeah. So it was 0, 5, and 8%, and so
Okay.
again,
I thought like pop is a very Midwest thing for like
well,
Coca-Cola,
well,
soda.
so
like,
so that's the other thing
yeah.
too, is that understanding kind of like where you are, and pop is a very regionalized kind of thing. Also, that's the other great thing too, is always making sure that you're being legal, compliant, etc. So there actually are a lot of there's actually 7 different alcoholic beverages that do use the word pop currently on the market.
Really?
So we run everything through our yeah we
You're gonna be careful.
totally. I was gonna say, make sure that everything's
I
registered.
don't. I don't know if you knew what he did there, but at Riot Fest they made a specific drink for the event.
Yeah, I got that.
Which is incredible. And the brown, I got to show you the branding after we're done here. It's a throwback to like the 90s, 80s.
Dan Wade did such a good. Literally, it's like that was. working hand in hand with the team. Because it's like it's
you
people
built like a
I've
skateboard like half pipe.
put a half pipe in the middle of the festival, and that's so like when you're working hand in hand with people who, again, it's passion, it's real, and so it's like my favorite thing is like, I'll take any good idea as far as to go until a lawyer or an accountant literally tells me that it's like impossible, and then it's like, yeah, let's put a half pipe. No sane person would say absolutely. Oh wait, okay, cool, let's do it. Getting that across the board, and then again having like Aloha Worldwide team, and again like all the people involved. It wasn't like some agency put this together. It literally was just like tapping friends, and that was.
And what
the
do you
great
call
thing.
this type of market? Because it seems like that example is what you've been doing from White Claw.
So basically, field culture,
Culture
yeah,
marketing.
There's.
I think it's awesome.
Well, and I go. Basically, what it distills down to, and that was the biggest thing too with building System from day one, is that we want to build it with people that cannot be bought. When I say people that can't be bought, is that they're doing things with purpose, intent, and meaning. And so that's what's special about it, is basically the world, personally and professionally, the way I live is 3 degrees of connection amongst great people. Hence, literally, there's 3 of us right now on the most amazing podcast in the entire world, talking about, again, just things that have meaning to them.
There's so much to talk to you about. I know we got to wrap it up here.
I think it's. I will say one thing. I think it's interesting as I listen to hear that you were.
Selfie.
Yeah. Hear you. You've got this skill, it seems like, to identify things that should be new or things that should change, and then things that shouldn't. And I think that people are always trying to stick their hands in and make something new all the time. And I think that taking that old can is an example of, you've got something that's already there. There's no reason to make things complicated. But then you've got this idea for this 0% hard seltzer too, which is kind of the other side of it. So I think that that's an interesting.
You got a
It's an interesting skill set.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, my whole thing is like, look, times may change, some things stay the same, and everybody's a different kind of like context on how they view the world. And a lot of times people say, well, there's nothing new, everything's been done. Well, I'll use Vampire Weekend for an example, which I love, by the way. Everyone's like, yeah, this is literally just Paul Simon, right? Or whatever. And it was kind of like, yeah, but to someone who's never heard that before, this is completely new, just kind of like positioned in a way that's presented, as something like new and special. So,
I want to end it with one more thing, that you've worked with all these larger names that a lot of people know. There's another thing that you do that one of my rooms upstairs is decorated with. The Chicago Pizza Summit, which we haven't even talked about.
Oh my gosh, total labor of love.
It's another example of such a fun, like, community thing. We first episode we talk about hot dogs. Another famous Chicago thing is the pizza. Give me like a 1 minute wrap up here on the pizza summit, and are you going to do another one?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
30 seconds is, again, I love pizza more than anything. I've had to ask a doctor literally like, if I eat like too much pizza, are there health implications? The great thing also, if a doctor told me this, is that pizza actually does, if you do it right, consist of all the major food groups.
Does it have electrolytes?
So yeah, well, I mean, it's what people crave. Obviously, you can put electrolytes in anything. No, but so I mean, you can get actually all your key food groups through pizza, which is magical. But anyway, side note. But no, so the whole thing was like, you're like, how has nobody brought together all like the key pizza? I mean, this is the greatest pizza city in the world. How has
Uh-oh.
nobody put this
Shots fired.
together? I'll put that flag in all day. But so it's like, that's what's so amazing, and it wasn't easy. I mean, there's this whole separate story of how it came together. But if you get a bunch of people in a room, and the three tenets of Pizza Summit: community, friendship, dialogue. Simple as that. And what happens when you basically say, hey, great, come literally be around the pizza community, and this is a celebration for us all. It became a thing that I never even realized would be as big as it did. It grow sequentially year over year. One of the biggest challenges has been, with the pandemic. I mean, again, that's where you always go back to the three tenets, right? Community, friendship, and dialogue. We will never put our community at risk. We always want to have dialogue. And again, friendship is based on those things. So, with the kind of like uncertainty of the pandemic and things like that, we said, look, let's just put it on pause for now, especially, it's been challenging, but when we come back, which we will, it's going to be bigger than ever. And that'll be
Nice.
one of the greatest moments as well, probably akin to Riot Pop and the first inclusive drinking system
Yeah.
debut.
I'm one of the most fun things I've ever been to was that and the boxing event. Everything you do is gold.